Welcome to the Mentors and Moguls podcast. I'm your host, Heather Stone. I bring you mentors and moguls from all around the world, different walks of life, from creatives to CEOs to business leaders to top athletes and all kinds of other people in between. If you like our episode today, all of our podcasts are available on our YouTube channel. Please go ahead and subscribe and comment. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Today, I am thrilled to have a special guest. This is Austyn Wells. She is a spiritual medium and soul gardener. Welcome to the program.
Why, thank you, Heather. I'm very glad to be here.
We have a lot to talk about here today, so let's just jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about passion and what drives you and how to recognize your passion. Tell me, when did you first realize what your passion was? And then walk us through how you proceeded to develop that passion as an adult.
That's a big question.
I know.
I think passion to me is when you have an alignment with what your soul is here to do. At a very young age, I was aware that I could connect with the spirit world, but I don't think I had the cognitive realization that that was exactly what it was supposed to do as a child. But it was natural for me. So I explored other passions that I thought were important that all had tributaries essentially to what I ended up doing. So I was always talking with the spirit world and always getting indications at different points in my life that that was what I was supposed to do. So for me, my passion and actually becoming a medium was a longer evolution that began when I was 5, but then has just continued as my life has gone on.
Did you recognize it when you were young that maybe you were in the minority, being able to hear and see and feel things from the spirit world? Did you keep it quiet? Did you share it with your parents? What was that like with your friends?
I was in a minority in my family, my immediate family.
Right.
So it was a very secret thing that I had. And God love my mom, but she wasn't necessarily someone you woke up in the middle of the night if you had an issue.
Right.
So I would use the spirit world as a comfort zone and a nurturing zone just innately. I don't think I ever questioned that.
Okay.
So, but I did have my dad's mom, my paternal grandmother, who told me the last time I saw her, I was driving her to her home after Christmas. And she very saliently and calmly said to me, "I will be more connected to you when I die than I am when I'm living." And it was the most extraordinary sentence to come out of her mouth. And it really took me for a loop because it was very close to her. And within a couple of months, she died. And through the work, I've realized as a soul, we understand when we're going to die. So it really spoke to the spiritual evolution of my grandmother that she knew that that was the case. But that was absolutely the truth. So she was my alignment. So once she crossed to the spirit world, then it really became very private. Then it receded. And then my first boyfriend's mom was very spiritual. And then it percolated up again.
Interesting. So I believe that everyone comes into our life for a reason, to teach us a lesson or a series of lessons, and maybe they move on when the lessons are over. So it sounds like you've had a few of those encounters along the way, or has your whole life been lessons and people coming in to teach you and take you and hold your hand to the next step in your particular field?
I think to say I'm the only person that happens to would be erroneous. I think all of us have those magical spiritual awakenings all through our life. People that gently cattle prod you into your becoming.
Right.
You've been with me when one of them crossed my path, and that was psychic medium John Edward.
Right.
So along the way, we are so beautifully guided by the universe in every encounter. So from that perspective, you can't help but look at each moment of your life as having a potential gift for you. And with that excitement and that anticipation, you feel rather childlike at times.
I love And I know you, and I know that you like to explore different things when they come to you. And I think you've been a great teacher for me and for many people to honor the feelings that are coming your way and to explore, why did that person come in my life? And there must be a good reason, and seek some meaning out of that. And I think that's lost on a lot of people, and I wish more people would pay attention. So hopefully you can connect with some of the viewers and help guide them long after this interview and help them recognize some of those signs. Let's change the subject a little bit and talk about overcoming barriers and dealing with fears or dealing with a lack of self-confidence. A lot of people look to mentors to help them, encourage them, reassure them, it's okay to take the next step, go down this road, not that road. How do you think that your spiritual sense and even mediumship plays a role or can help and play a role in someone's life? Care to expand on that?
To answer that question profoundly and precisely, I would need to talk about my perception of the soul.
Yes.
So there is an innate duality with all of us. We have a finite self and we have an infinite self. Our finite self understands the world as physical. So in understanding the world as physical, we must have 5 senses, our emotions, and be able to understand that everything is concrete, but also within that, because we're looking at the world as physical, everything dies. Because there's nothing that's material that is eternal.
Right.
Conversely, or dualistically, there is also our infinite self, which sees the world as energetic and spiritual. From that perspective, everything is connected and we are immortal. So they're 2 absolutely contradictory ways of looking at the world, and both comprise our soul.
Okay.
And both comprise our soul.
Okay.
So where we run into the largest challenges as human beings is the entire reason that we incarnate, which is to explore the experience of the finite self, which is in absolute contrast with the infinite self. So because we have the emotions and we have our senses, we will experience fear, envy, resentment, guilt, shame, all of these expressions of our experience that are all related to how we interrelate with each other, that will diminish us and make us feel we're separate, alone, and disconnected. So when you're talking about the challenges that people face and why they might seek somebody that has a spiritual perspective, our job, anybody that holds a nurturing space for someone to step into the authenticity of themselves, is literally just holding that space and that reminder of the infinite aspect of that person, for them to be reminded that they're perfect in their imperfection.
That's a really good point. I don't think that this is stated or screamed from the rooftops enough that we are all perfect. We're all unique. And I love that you brought that up, because I think there with social media, there's so many things that we allow to come into our world and kind of touch a nerve and get us out of alignment with who we really are, or our perception of who we really are, or we're not enough, we need to be someone else. So if you had someone that came to you and said, look, all these other people are living larger than life lives. I see it online. They're at the party. They're wearing the latest fashion. They're doing all the right things. And by the way, they're size 2 and they have 6-packs. Doesn't happen, everybody. I'm just telling you that. But that's the perception, that you need to be everything and you should be everything and you're not enough if you're less than. So bring that back into the spiritual realm if you could. How do you talk to someone and basically reassure them that that's just kind of a veil, that's not really what life is all about?
By helping them understand that their finite self is defining itself by what other people either have told you to be, or what you're perceiving you need to be, because you're comparing yourself with other people. So with the infinite self and understanding that you are, when you come from the perspective that you are a perfect distillation of spirit, God, however you want to look at it, that distills itself into a perfect physical vessel to gift this world with your amazing authenticity, then you do yourself such a disservice to say, I'm wearing this, but I should be wearing that because these people are initiating that. But within the experience of being human, I honestly believe we need to try to mirror what is around us, only to discover that it doesn't fit. And the very people that we admire that are living authentic lives are people who more often than not have said, yeah, that's not really what I'm interested in. Let me try it this way. And they do something so powerfully fearful and risk-taking that they find within themselves an expression and a freedom that becomes contagious.
I love that you said that, freedom. Someone just said this to me last night, is to let go of your fear is to feel final freedom. And I thought, wow, if it was just that simple, why am I not doing that in other facets of my life? So that's interesting.
I think being a risk taker is a personal journey. You can't really be being a risk taker doesn't happen by somebody making you do something.
Right.
It is an inner drive that for some is instilled in them when they first arrive on the planet, and other people find it a little bit later in the dance.
Right.
But whenever that happens, it is an amazing freedom piece. Having every aspect of my business now gets more and more frightening to step into. But then the more I pounce into the fear, the more of myself I discover, and the more I realize that fear is just me 5 minutes from now that's stronger. So the force field of fear, and it really, I think if you look at fear as energetic,
right,
what we sense when we fear is immediately when we feel fear, we will pull back from it.
Right.
The reason why is because the quanta of fear feels more powerful than we are in that moment. And you know what? It's true, because that force field is us. That force field is our soul in 5 minutes, waiting for us to just become it. And then once you absorb that energy, then it becomes contagious. You just want more. So I think it's part of the reason why some people seem like they can't stop inventing or can't stop entrepreneuring, because once you get the fever, you just want to keep going.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah. Those are the people that everybody wants to be, with the people who are audacious, the people who, and so I think what we've got right now is a lot of people trying to figure out what it looks like and trying to copy what it looks like based on what they witness, instead of taking the time to do the personal exploration to find out where that audacity lives within your own soul. And then once you get a key on that, then you don't want somebody to tell you what it looks like. Then you don't want somebody to define anything. In fact, it's more like, excuse me, I need a moment to myself because I finally am in, like, it's like catching a great wave.
Right.
I've never surfed, but I can only imagine it would be the case. But it's like catching this great wave and saying, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Right. And you just want more.
Yeah. But I think people think it's easy, and it's not. It's terrifying. It's absolutely frightening, but it's the best kind of fear. It's like that moment before you jump off of, like, I love ziplining, and I love the feeling of flying, but the thing that scares the crap out of me is the jump moment.
Right.
Because right before I'm like, I don't want to jump. But the minute you jump, it's like, wee, I want to do it again.
Right.
So that's the part I think we're all striving for, is that childlike enthusiasm when we didn't think so much.
Right.
And the finite self thinks a lot. The infinite self feels, so it knows what the feeling it's after is. That's why intuition is so beautiful, because it knows feeling, and it just keeps following the feeling instead of having the, like, staccato interruption of thought going, nope, you can't do that. Nope, people don't do that. Nope.
That's right. Well, I'm really glad that you brought up intuition. So I believe that our intuition, and women's intuition, if you will, really can help protect us and guide us. Tell us about intuition. Let's start with, how do you recognize that you are having an intuitive thought and know that you should listen to it?
First of all, I'd like to say that we are being so beautifully mindful these days about what we are assigning as a girl, a woman, a man, and a boy thing. Intuition is male and it's female. So I think when we're talking about intuition, we even need to branch it out to just intuition instead of, I think, women's intuition, because as a birthing process, which I have no experience except for having given birth to a book. But women's intuition, I think, is because it has been natural for the woman to actually be able to be aware of what was a feeling.
Right.
Within us, we have a duality. We are both masculine and feminine. The feminine aspect, which would probably be the woman's intuition, is more internal. It's a darker energy, darker being a deeper, thoughtful, introspective idea. Masculine energy is more action-based and more aggressive. Both of those aspects within us exist. Intuition is more of a feminine aspect of ourselves because it demands that there is a listening to a moment, which also infers that our infinite self has to be part of it, because something has to be objectifying or witnessing a moment in order to feel what is actually happening. So if we're completely in our thoughts and worried about what our next idea is, we're not listening and we're not feeling. We're just waiting for that moment to jump in. So intuition is the ability to be so soul-centered, where you really have an aspect deep within yourself that is quiet and still, so it can feel what the moment is. And by feeling the moment, you will feel whether it feels good or it doesn't. And trusting that voice within all of us, and it's very quiet.
Right.
Is magical because it allows the infinite self to be part of the discussion. And the infinite self is always informed by spirit. So you're having a spiritual experience when you allow that feeling to be recognized and allow your intuition to play in a moment.
A lot of people, when I bring up this topic, they will say, sometimes I don't know if I should trust it. And other people have said in their interviews, I always trust it. And every time I go against what's deep down inside is something is telling me, my gut, so to speak, they say I always wind up wishing that I would have listened to my gut in the first place. How do you get someone to the point where they can kind of let go and trust it? Can you do that? Practice?
Practice.
Okay. Okay.
Because think about it. So the finite self thinks
Mm-hmm.
and the infinite self feels.
Right.
So you've got your duality right there.
Yeah.
So I felt I should do this, but I thought I shouldn't. So really, it's not about always being in the infinite self and trusting our instincts and intuition. It's about learning that there's a benefit when the infinite self parents. So when our feelings parent our thoughts, when they work together as a really positively dysfunctional at times dance team.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, on a daily basis, you do something a little unusual as your work. Since we're talking about careers and talking about developing careers, at what point did you say, okay, I'm ready to trust what my intuition is telling me, hang up a shingle, and invite the public in and try and give them messages, so to speak? And I'll let you explain to the audience exactly what you do and how you came to that point when you first sat down and helped someone else out deliver a message.
That is so long ago.
Yes.
I don't know if there is always that moment, that salient moment when you say, oh, that's when it happened. I've always had a personality that felt like I was here to try to support other people in their becoming.
Okay.
I don't believe we heal, and I don't believe we necessarily help, because it's up to the individual to receive the help or to receive the healing.
Right.
So I had a love of anything to do with the spirit world since I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that was an opportunity to like step into that was fun. I knew that when I was little, prayer worked, because I had evidence of it working, and it wasn't something I was doing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so bitchin', this is happening because of me. It was, I felt like I was participating in something bigger than myself. That's it.
Okay.
And really, intuition, in a sense, is when you know that you're participating in something that's bigger than yourself.
Right.
It's like you're in the Gulf Stream. So I had a party planner. Dear Lord. I had a party planner when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And I used to do birthday parties as Barbie.
Okay.
We are not going to talk about this.
Okay.
More.
All right. Talk about stereotypes.
So
We'll talk
I
about that
was
later.
really into tarot cards at the time.
Okay.
And I loved them, and I thought they were really neat. And my party planner was this fabulous woman from New York who was very charismatic, and everything was, oh my God, you've got this. You're beautiful. Go out there, do it. I don't care. So she knew I read tarot cards, and she threw me into a party one day and just said, bring your cards, wear something pretty. I don't care. Tell them something nice and smile. And it was really the wrong reason to go forward.
Yeah.
But because I always need to feel like I'm making a positive difference, I tried very hard to do my best. And that was the beginning of the feeling of doing something honestly for the benefit of someone else, when I felt for the first time why our souls are here and what it feels like to be of service to somebody else, where my needs are supplanted by the importance of another individual and the feeling that comes with that. It's not ego. It has nothing to do with ego. It's just being able to witness someone have an aha moment, a light go on, something where it feels like you're actually doing something helpful.
So you've always felt this desire to help and give back in some way, shape, or form, it sounds like, and this is your vehicle to do that.
Yes.
I love that. Okay.
Yes.
Well, fast forward a little bit. Now that you've obviously had a great career doing this and you're just getting started, I happen to know a few things.
I use psychic too.
Yeah, no.
Oh my God.
I read.
I'm sorry. I
read. But it's interesting because I know a lot of people aren't really sure what a medium does. And can you just kind of give the definition, or what your definition of a medium is, and what you do and how you hope to help people through this process? And I'm just going to leave it with that word. Okay.
A medium is an individual who holds a sacred space to connect a person who's in a physical body with a soul who's out of the physical, or to a energetic being that is connected to the person in a body. So essentially, medium is a perfect word. I'm a conduit between two people, two souls. One just happens to be physical.
So you have people that can go online, and we'll talk about where they can find you in just a minute. They can go online and they can book an appointment if they have a need to connect with someone on the other side who's already passed for whatever reason. I know for a fact that you are a positive medium. You never share anything negative with people. You only give positive things. And obviously you're a proven medium, because if you don't know this, Austyn has spoken to people all over the world, and she's phenomenal. Her accuracy rate and ratio is amazing. So she's the real deal. There's a lot of people out there that maybe aren't, or they're still working on their craft, but Austyn is the real deal. So having said that, you encounter, as a medium, a lot of different energies around you, coming at you. One energy is grief. And I know that you've got some background in grief counseling. Talk about how that plays into your daily process, into your work, which is very important. And then talk a little bit about your work. Maybe share some stories or examples that you can share.
Okay. Grief is most definitely a component of the finite self, because we're going back to the idea that there is death, and with death there is an absolute disconnect from someone or something we have loved profoundly. Grief is incredibly deep, and as an energy, it can cloud so much of our ability to feel, which is why, and it overwhelms our thinking process. So it's very difficult when people are in grief to have a sense of their infinite self, to have a sense of the spirit world, because they must have the experience of being a physical being, of being a human being, and understanding the power of love, and also having the perspective of how that love for that individual is informing their soul. I deal with so much depth of grief. The most profound grief I deal with undoubtedly is the unexpected deaths, and those are parents with children in the spirit world, siblings with siblings in the spirit world, the deaths that just shouldn't happen. And I have so much respect for the parents in the spirit world. I have so much respect for parents who are, and families who are dealing with an unexpected loss. My publishers had asked me in my book to write a chapter about grief, because since I had no intimate knowledge except for my own experience of dealing with grief, I became a grief counselor as a medium, which I think was a very good decision for me, because it's a uncharted road that honestly has no set trajectory. It depends on the person. They asked me to write a chapter in the book about grief, and instead of defaulting to my personal experience, I realized the people that should be having the discussion were 3 hand-chosen moms whose son are in spirit for different reasons. And I gave the chapter to them, and I asked them to answer different questions, because we need to be better at supporting people's grief. These families that have profound loss not only have the loss of their child in the spirit world, they also have the loss of friends, because we are awkward in supporting people in the grieving process.
It's very hard to know what to say to someone.
Yeah.
It's different when a parent passes, because obviously sometimes you're ready for that.
Yes.
It's inevitable. It seems to be closer. They've lived a full life in most cases. But when someone loses a child, that's just like, I don't even know what to say to someone. It almost seems like a field laced with landmines. So a lot of times we remain silent for fear that we're going to say something even worse than the silence.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
That's why I gave them the chapter, because I learned so much from them. And I literally, one of the questions I said was, what are the do's and don'ts of supporting people going through extraordinary loss? And may I also include in this conversation pets?
Yes.
Because many people have their most intimate relationships with 4 legs instead of 2 legs.
Right. That's very true. They're their own children. They're just furry.
And they equally are in profound levels of loss, but we will judge whether or not that is, according to us, what we think a loss is. So we won't understand that it is profound as it is. These ladies, Lydia, Deanna, and Mary, and it's very sweet. My publishers asked me to change the names of the sons in the book, because 2 of them are Matthew. There's Matthew, and Ben. And I said to my publishers, and they were blessed enough to agree with me, I said, the mothers are going to have their children help the world. They want their names.
Yes. Yes, I understand that.
The other thing, too, is a parent has the joy, you know this, You have beautiful children. You get to talk about all the things that they're doing and all of the ways that they're expanding as their lives continue. These parents want to keep talking about their children. Keep the conversation going. Remind them. Remind them, tell them stories of how their child touched your life.
Interesting.
Bring up birthdays or special moments, or just keep that child's memory going and support how that parent is navigating their grief. Because many times that parent becomes, their work becomes allowing that child to remain part of this world. And that's exactly what their souls need to do.
Oh, that's a good point. I would think the opposite. I would think don't mention it because you might bring up something they don't want to hear or talk about. So I will approach that differently now.
But again, I think it's very natural to feel uncomfortable about it. But I think that the benefit of a soul-centered approach to life is realizing in every moment, especially we encounter our resistance and our discomfort, there's something for us to learn. So if we can just be willing to say, I don't know right now. And that's the most groovy thing I can let myself feel. So I'm going to not know right now, and you're going to take the authority, and I'm going to let you teach me how to be a better human being.
Well, you mentioned the book. So I'd like to talk about your book right now. First of all, congratulations.
Thank
I know
you.
that this is your baby. This has been a labor of love. And I am so excited to announce this to the world. Share a little bit about the book with the audience, please.
It is my baby.
Yes.
Oh my God. I am so thrilled to be gifting this. And I say gifting it because I'm hopeful it will be helpful. I wish I had a compendium of what a spiritual journey could look like. So I tried to distill it into a book. It is divided into 3 different sections. The first section is all about the soul, what it is, where it is, what the landscape of the soul is, how to feel your soul, how the soul uses its own senses. Much like we have physical senses, we have spiritual senses, and how those soul senses perceive energy. And then we go into kind of a playground in the middle of the book, which is letting your soul play with connecting with loved ones and spirit guides and pets, and how it feels to extend beyond your own soul to connect with other souls. The last part of the book is soul-centered living, because it's all fun and games to be talking to angels and guides and loved ones in the spirit world. But the point of spiritual living is how we treat each other. So the back half of the book is nurturing yourself, nurturing other people, nurturing your relationships, which is the whole reason that we're here. And the biggest lesson that all of us have to learn is how we treat each other, which I think is tantamount right now.
Right. Yes, right now.
Yeah.
I think we're all connected.
Yeah.
And what I do affects more than just myself. It affects everyone around me and so forth and so on. So yeah, very timely your book is.
Why, thank you.
Yes.
I'm excited.
All right. So let's get into some of the fun things.
Okay.
Fun things from the perspective of, let's say that one of the crew members here was coming to you for a reading, and they have no idea what to expect. They're not even sure that they believe in this whole spiritual world. They may not even believe in a higher power, a God, go to church or whatever it is, but they're suffering. So someone signed them up and they said, you're going to go for a reading with Austyn. Just sit there. I can't tell you what to expect. What should someone expect? And then walk us through, what's that like? What will it do for them, or what's the purpose? Big question.
I would like to start by saying I have complete respect for all people, and I don't want to convert anybody, nor do I have any desire to force someone into my mythology and my cosmology, because that's not why we're here. I am fortunate and will actually choose not to encounter people who are going to be disconnected. I don't have any desire to force someone into my cosmology. Mm-hmm. So I'm not attracting at this point that idea, because it's not my soul's purpose. There's plenty of people that love to step into that argument. That's not mine. I'm here to work with the people who it could be helpful for. If someone comes to me for the first time, I love it. It's really fun because it is I fall in love with every client I have because I actually get to sit with them on a one-to-one. Mm-hmm. I get to find out what is their authenticity, what is the magic, what are the things that the spirit world wants to say to this individual to remind them of that they have forgotten about themselves. So all I do is sit across from them and allow myself to be a conduit of communication on behalf of the spirit world to honor and celebrate their soul. I pray very hard prior to every single session that their soul releases what no longer serves them, fear, blame, doubt, shame, fill in the blank, but step into that service piece, which is why they're here. And then what happens? Magical.
Right.
And when I say that, that has nothing to do with me being all that. It is what transpires as a result of me surrendering to the fact that there is a possibility that the openness of my soul might be a clear channel for another person to hear something that they've forgotten, or to be reminded or healed, or be able to release something that they carry that is not a definer of the truth of who they are.
This is great. It's a great explanation of how you think about it and how you approach it. So I'll take it another step further, because I'm sure people are dying to know. Are your spirit guides your past relatives, or are your spirit guides something completely different?
Yes. Yes, okay. It's all of that. I think we get very compartmentalized and we think, oh my God, I've got my spirit guide. I'm all set. It's fabulous. Right. You have so many people that support your soul. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. So when I was 5, I had a moment where I was in a fashion show. And I was terrified. I was a bridesmaid. I had way too much tulle, and I was very human and was going to face plant. I knew it. So I was terrified in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh my God, someone help me. So didn't want to wake up the parents. Wasn't the right idea. So I had to deal with this on my own. And so I prayed very hard for help. My room became filled with people I had never met.
Did that scare you?
No. I was not terrified at all. So from the walls, they started like morphing and undulating. And then all of a sudden, these people came in my room. Like lots of people came into my room. One woman in particular came to my bedside. But but by illustrating the story, although the woman was key to helping me out, there were all these souls supporting that moment because it was part of the joy that they had in connecting with the physical world, was to comfort those of us that had the willingness to ask for help. And at that point, I was really seeing spirit very, very clearly. And then as my prayer was answered, and as this woman split my room into 2 parts, so I actually got to witness the runway of the next day, and I saw myself go through everything effortlessly. Then she had me feel how everybody in the room felt. Then she had me feel the energy of the room. And when I knew that I was going to be absolutely fine, that part of the room dissipated back into my room. A lot of the people at that point had gone because the healing had happened. And then she was just there.
So what was the conversation at the breakfast table the next morning? I'm just curious.
We read the Daily Word as I was growing up. Yeah. So there was a sense of spirituality. My dad, I think, had more connection that way. But I think they just thought.
Did you share what had happened the night before, or did you just keep it to yourself?
Think they thought girlfriend might have been a little bit imaginative.
Got it. Okay. So you just had an active imagination.
Heck yeah.
We'll call it a day.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's say we've got Shane here, who's in our crew, and Shane comes to see you, and you sit down, and he's never been to a medium. Do you hear things? And I want you to explain the different senses. Do you hear things? Do you see his grandfather or whoever has passed in vivid color, in a shape, in a white light? What? Share with the audience that has no clue what this is all about.
Okay.
For you, I know every medium's different.
Yeah. I was going to say every medium is very, very different.
Yeah.
So I am blessed to have all of my soul senses work together, which generally is the case. When mediums, intuitives are teaching the work, we oftentimes will isolate one soul sense at a time.
What is a soul sense?
A soul sense, so we have you feel, you hear, you see, you taste, you touch, and you smell. Physically, you do the same thing with your soul.
Okay.
So soul feeling is clairsentience. They're called the clairs.
Okay.
So clairsentience is feeling. So I started with clairsentience so I could feel how someone passed. I could feel their love for someone else. But feeling a soul's journey is a bit of a limited conversation. So fortunately, then I started hearing that soul in the spirit world talking to me. So then they would say things to me that they wanted that individual to hear, which is a form of channeling. Okay. So channeling is when a soul in the spirit world has a message that comes through an open soul, an open channel. Paul Selig is a beautiful channel. Esther Hicks is a beautiful channel. Those are people that really define channeling to the perspective that it, in the truest sense.
Okay.
So when I'm sitting with someone, all of my soul senses combine.
Okay.
To connect to an individual. Some souls in the spirit world will be very flamboyant. I've been mooned by souls in the spirit world.
Interesting.
Absolutely, but it's very definitive for their personality.
Right.
Fits them, and the person across from me will go, yeah, of course, he would totally do that. Okay. So it's, again, so within a mediumship sitting, there are different goals. It is imperative for me to give evidence. Evidence means I need to make sure that my sitter acknowledges and knows exactly who it is that I'm talking to.
Right.
For instance, if I said, oh my God, Heather, your grandmother is here and she has gray hair and I think she is good at cooking and she was loving.
Right.
It's not the kind of evidence that we want to
right.
go after.
Right.
You really want people to talk about a father figure with a hat on who's standing by a dam. Those kind of things are much more specific, and I've been feeling him the entire time, just so you know.
Which is my father, and that's a very specific, nobody would know that. So, yes, exactly. Yeah. So you give specific evidence, basically to say it's legit, it's real, it's not your imagination, and you're not fishing, throwing generalities out there. You're not fishing.
There's two pulses in a mediumship sitting. Mm-hmm. You definitely want to give evidence. So I go back to the finite and the infinite self again.
Okay.
The finite self needs proof. We need proof about everything. We think everything. We don't believe it. That's the skeptic. That's the part that goes, no, this can't possibly be true. Everything's physical. No, there's not this continuance. So that's the part that needs the evidence. So human beings need evidence that we are immortal because it makes absolutely no sense to the finite self. The infinite self and the spirit world is fully aware of the fact that they're immortal. So they don't need proof. They recognize the fact that we need healing. So within a mediumship sitting, there should be two ideas. There should be the delivering of evidence, but there also should be a reason why the soul has stepped forward.
Okay.
They should always come with a significant reason, a significance, with a message And not just, oh, I love you, you're so pretty today. They should come with something that's significant.
Right.
But sometimes if you're dealing with someone who never heard I love you from someone,
Right.
that's all that needs to be said. But the messages will always be authentic to the soul that comes through, or the pet.
Right.
Pets are pretty amazing. Pets notice everything. They'll tell me what side of a bed somebody sleeps on. I had a dog one time tell me that a client I was reading for had never dealt with the fact that her boyfriend had died in high school, and I needed to bring it up.
What happened when you did?
And then with the dog came the boyfriend. So the dog brought in the boyfriend because the client I was reading for was a little bit unnerved by the process. And so the spirit world is intelligent enough to deliver exactly who needs to come forward first and in the proper order. So for this woman, the heart opener was her dog. So the minute the dog came in, she knew we were in good business. But the healing that needed to happen. So you see the brilliance of the spirit world, right?
Right.
So they know there's an opportunity here. How can we create the best opportunity? Okay, bring in the dog. If we bring in the dog, she's going to soften up a little bit. Okay, then we'll bring in the guy. And then it was this beautiful moment where two souls were reconciled and had a moment to release some regrets that never got spoken in the physical world.
You talk about regrets. So that leads me into the next burning question that I think a lot of people would. So a lot of times I think it's advertised, or how can I say this? A general mainstream thought is, my father passed and I never got to tell him X. You have a lot of people that come to you and finally get to get that message across or get a message back to them. And then all of a sudden, for the lack of a better word, there's closure, or that issue was put to bed and they can stop obsessing or feeling guilty over something. Does that happen?
Almost every session. And that's not an applause to me at all. That's just the beauty of the spirit world, especially when someone's been in a coma, especially when someone has been unable to communicate prior to passing. There's so many times that a soul will pass away before someone arrives. I honestly believe that as souls, we have an opportunity to choose who's with us when we die. And it's not always the person that we're most aligned with. If you think about it, when you go to a party, do you want to leave when like the best people are in the room, or do you wait until the party's kind of starting to fade a little bit and then you kind of go, okay, I'm going to leave now?
When it's not so interesting and you're tired, you're like, I can bow out now.
Absolutely. So the exact same thing happens when somebody dies. That's why so often people are like, I just left the room and they died. And they're like, yeah, because it's easier for them sometimes. It's hard for them to leave when everybody's there. Although some people love all the attention and they're going to milk it for all it's worth. Right. Some souls are absolutely that way. Other people are, for instance, I saw my father and then I came back home to see my husband for his birthday, and my dad died while I was down here. And and at first, my dad died when I was down here, and I knew that was exactly what needed to happen, because it would have been really hard for he and I to, how do you say goodbye to somebody that is that important? And we were good. We had everything finished. But I think the greatest lesson that you can get, or that I live differently being a medium. I don't assume anything. I don't assume that I'm going to see everybody a whole bunch of times, always. I will try to maximize the moments that I have, be as grateful as I can, connect as graciously as I can, because you just never know. And it's not a negative way of living. It's actually what it should be. We should be so fully invested in the moments of our life, because that's what the spirit world talks about. I have never had someone in the spirit world go, oh my God, I had the best cars.
Right.
I had the biggest house.
Right.
You should have seen how much cash I carried around. That is never the conversation. Right. It's, damn it, I did not treat this person with respect. Why didn't I tell this person I love them more? So relationships, the most key part of our soul evolution, for sure.
I was listening to a motivational speaker not too long ago, and this line I'm going to I'm going to steal it from them because I thought it was just funny, but hit the nail right on the head. He said, I've never seen a funeral procession with a U-Haul in it. You can't take it with you. And it's not all about that. It's your friends and your family.
Yeah.
And what did they say about you when you went, and how did you touch their lives? Do you get that from people on the other side saying the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even witnessed it with my dad. My dad knew he was dying because he had cancer. My dad would not hang on the phone a lot. And then all of a sudden, he just wanted to talk.
Had a lot to get out.
No, he just wanted to listen.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of people now, you know, the death industry is amazing right now. It's blossoming. There are green funerals. There are much more personalized ways that people are encountering death and dealing with death. Even dealing with allowing people to, as we used to in the 1800s, the mid 18th century, we used to have people die at home. So it wasn't this big scary thing that happened with the industrial age where death suddenly went in hospitals, and it became what they call invisible death, where we're not witnessing it anymore. But that personalization of watching someone go through the dying process is such a beautiful transition. So there's so many souls now that are drawn to finding the comfort, the nurturing, and the peace, and the illuminating spirituality and the incredible miracles that happen around a person's death. It's a beautiful transition to witness somebody going through. It's painful, but we need each other in that moment, probably more than most.
This is fascinating. So many questions and so little time. But fear of death. And I don't want to confuse this with suicide. I want to talk about both of these things, only because I've worked on a project with suicide, teen suicide, young people suicide. I want to talk about that. But first, fear of death. Should people be afraid of their eventual death? We're all going to die someday, but by natural causes. Should people be afraid of death, or is that a waste of time? Or how can you help someone look at that and not be so afraid of the inevitable?
Our souls have to be afraid of whatever we're afraid of as part of our evolutionary process. We are all going to be on one level or another afraid of death because it's something we don't know, because fear and I don't know go together. So the more we can befriend the idea of I don't know as a really cool thing to happen, it will allow you to have more of an experience of dying. So there are many organizations that are working around conscious dying, which means that they're backing down the morphine and allowing the experience of dying to be more conscious.
And what is the purpose of that?
To allow you to experience your own death instead of put a Band-Aid on it and pretend like it's not happening. Or tone, you're essentially disallowing yourself.
You're numbing the experience so they can't feel it? Is that what you're saying?
Morphine clouds the experience.
Okay.
It's one of the things that blows my mind about the fact we celebrate and drink at the same time. It just seems bizarre to me that we don't consciously experience what we celebrate because we drink. Because there's an aspect of you that's not 100% there,
Right.
I mean, it's a great tradition, but it's kind of funny. So morphine, it's such a huge discussion. I was listening to a great TED Talk about overdoses, and they were talking about the impact that substances are having upon people and how difficult it is for people to come out of them.
Right.
So the problem with morphine is that it clouds an experience for sure, but the conscious dying movement is one that is hoping that it can allow people to experience death more consciously, so they understand it's a spiritual process too. It's physical and it's spiritual.
So you deal with people that have crossed over. How about people that are contemplating crossing over on their own? Can you speak a little bit about that?
A person, it is an individual's choice to live or to not live. It's a very, very serious one. And most of us, I think, have had a moment in our lives where we have not felt worthy enough, or we have felt disconnected from so many things that we don't know what our worth is anymore. We all lose our way. We all have a dark night of the soul. In those moments, though, there is a tremendous opportunity, because we choose to be here to make a difference. And no matter how disconnected somebody feels, no matter how disappointed they feel that they've either made somebody else or someone has made them feel insignificant, everybody's a miracle.
Right.
It's a choice to be here. Mm-hmm. And I understand people lose their way. I talk to people who cross themselves over all the time. I had a woman come to me who was a police officer. And she was terrified she was going to lose her job because I was going to turn her in, and she was suicidal. And she just wanted to die. She was done. And there was lots of really substantial reasons for it. Mm-hmm. I was terrified because I felt so out of my realm as a grief counselor, as everything. So we didn't exchange money, and we were just two people sitting in a room talking about a really difficult thing. My family has been touched by suicide. Mm-hmm. And I could represent what it felt like personally to lose somebody who felt they were lost when they weren't lost, and the guilt that comes from all the other people that have to be left with the responsibility of trying to figure out what we could have done to change that person's mind. And I also have talked to people in the spirit world who immediately know that they made the wrong decision. The children who I have to talk to, who just want to talk to their mom and dad again and can't, and need me to be their strength, to communicate to their mom and dad that they didn't realize that it was going to go this way, is probably the most challenging part of my work. Because I cannot be me in that moment. I must be them.
Right.
I must be their soul's opportunity to talk to their mom and dad and tell them that they love them, and tell them that they're sorry, and tell them that they didn't mean to shatter their life and ruin it and make them feel like there's nothing left. Because immediately after a child crosses to the spirit world, the parent wants to go too. So then, and it's very, very normal, as is written in the book, it's very normal for a parent to want to join their child once they commit suicide, because your role as a parent has changed. So, if you're considering crossing yourself over, on a soul level, you chose to be here, and we all are going to have moments that are tough. But that's what everybody else is around you for. You're never alone. There's always someone. There's phone numbers you can call. There are people that work. I have friends of mine that work 24 hours waiting for phone calls to help people through that moment. The souls in the spirit world, after somebody has crossed themselves over, they can't affect any change until maybe there's an open-mindedness in the family to talk to a medium. And it has to be the right medium, maybe. So I don't know if that crossing over moment in a dark moment really helps. It actually creates more chaos for the people here.
And it doesn't solve the problem.
It seems like it may, because it's a temporary relief from a moment, but that moment passes, and there's so many moments after that one. It's such a shame not to just hang on.
Right. So everyone's job has pressure. Clearly your job has a whole nother level or 2 or 3 or 10 of pressure, because people are expecting something deeply emotional when they come to see you. When the session is done, how does that leave you? What is the residual imprint or energy that you're left with, and how do you deal with that?
I think in any profession, you have to learn how to articulate and expand into what's asked of you. In the beginning, I was working 5 days a week and doing multiple sessions in a day, plus doing privates and small groups. It backed up on me. And I don't think I expected it because I was having so much darn fun doing it. Because really, for the most part, the spirit world has a great sense of humor. Souls in the spirit world, they're fine. We're the ones that are really, really stuck. So stuck, they don't get stuck. We get stuck. So I think what I started noticing is I used to be, I was recently watching some tapes of myself, and I was witnessing this goofiness and this playfulness that I realize has diminished. So I have been on a journey the last couple of years to reclaim that part of me and to spend more time just living and enjoying myself, because it's not, death isn't the downer. Death isn't the discussion, really. Honestly, the part of the job that's tough is what we don't do with the opportunities we have. So yes, the death of an individual, if it's unexpected, is challenging. But really, the depth of the work is how many missed opportunities we have to tell people that we're sorry, I love you, you're important to me, or God, I just blew that and I should have done that differently. That was really disrespectful. So witnessing that, I guess, has just added a depth that I appreciate, but I have to really be careful about it and disengage.
Okay. All right. So I know you need rest in between, don't you? Just kind of a break and just kind of clear the space, or do you just go from one person to the next?
I have to take a break.
Right.
Yeah, I have to have days off. And it's difficult because you become very ensconced in people's lives. You become part of the family, especially if you can make a really solid soul connection. When they have needs, you can't help but feel part of their journey and you want to help them out. But the boundaries of a nurturer are key. Whether you are nurturing as mother, or you have that role as a nurse practitioner, or you are simply someone that just helps someone else out, you have to self-care.
Right.
So self-care is huge.
Right.
That's why it's in the book.
Hashtag Soul Conversations. Pick it up. Yes. Amazon.com.
Hashtag learn it from me so you don't have to do it yourself.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
What is next for Austyn Wells, medium extraordinaire?
Da-da-da.
Yes.
I'm excited. The process of birthing a book was so beautiful in its collaboration, because it was the first time someone else was objective to my mind. Mm-hmm. Brave people for foraging in there.
Right.
So the subtitle of the book is A Medium Reveals How to Cultivate Your Intuition, Heal Your Heart, and Connect with the Divine. So I realized they were giving me 3 different paths to explore. So I'm actually taking the book as a spiritual gift and moving in those directions. So my teaching platform has altered. I'm really looking forward to doing more speaking opportunities. I love working with people and groups. And there's also a whole part of it that I don't know what's going to happen, and that's fun.
That's the great part.
That's the I don't know that I'm going, cool.
Right. I think you're just getting started, to be honest with you. Everyone that has had a reading with you that I'm aware of, whether they went in skeptical or not, comes out saying, number 1, she's the real deal. And number 2, she healed my heart in a way that maybe I didn't even know needed to be healed. And I think that's probably one of the highest compliments that you could probably get as a medium. I'm not sure, but I know a lot of people that have been greatly affected in a positive way, just by having a conversation that they didn't really know they were going to have. Yeah. So I thank you for that and sharing your gift. There's a lot in the media these days about spirituality, about the shift in spirituality. Do you feel that, of course, 30 years ago, people weren't as open to the thought of a medium or to the thought of getting messages or listening to their intuition, whatever you call it. And it's religion, it's whatever you want to call it. Do you feel that things are shifting now and that more people are saying, I got a message and yeah, it's more common than I thought. I'm just paying attention now. Or is there an awakening happening? Do you think things are changing? What's your thought on that?
I am grateful to the generations that are incoming, because what they've done is essentially said, yeah, I don't really understand what has come before. I'm going to look at it totally differently. Mm-hmm. We needed a force of nature, which they are, to come in and say, I want to make my own decision. Mm-hmm. They're doing that with religion. There's some pretty fascinating statistics right now about how established religions are losing popularity. People are seeking a individualized understanding of what reality is. I believe there's a gorgeous opportunity in there for people to explore a spirituality. So to me, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is how humankind has looked at this idea of a power greater than our own and defined it and distilled it based on culture and location and mythology. Spirituality is the understanding that there is a power greater than ours and that it can be authentically represented by what it is that you discover in your life. I love the fact that people are choosing authentic spiritual paths. I don't think they should look the same. So it's part of the authentication process of our souls to discover what that spiritual journey is.
Interesting. I think we get messages from God. We get messages in church. We get messages, but it's really between you and God, whatever you call that, whatever your religion is. I grew up in a very religious family, and I firmly believe in church and God and all of that. And it wasn't until I had met some folks, you and some other people, that I really thought, okay, there is something there and we can all exist together, and everyone just has to make up their own mind what they believe. And I think having an experience for themselves, just like anything, once I do it, I know it to be true. And maybe it's not really everyone's cup of tea, and I understand that's completely fine with you. It's obviously everyone has to make up their own minds. You'll think differently in 10 years about things you thought about 10 years ago. But I really think that you're doing a great service, especially grief counseling and helping people. And I thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I've always wondered when they've talked about the second coming, that if it isn't when we find religion or God or Jesus outside of us, but it's when we find it within. So I am hoping that what transpires is people discovering that divinity within, and then using that as the information and the centering place to encounter each other. Because what I do is just sit in a space of allowing myself to be informed by a higher intelligence and allowing that intelligence to work with me to be there for another human being. It's called mediumship, but it really is human behavior at its best. And if we were to just sit with each other in that space and be that loving and that kind to each other, we could do so much individualized healing that I think is so necessary right now.
We need a lot more love in this world, especially now. I
Tenderness, compassion.
I agree. I was having a conversation with someone the other week, actually a guest on the show, and we were talking about meditating and vibrations and your energy level. Do you want to share anything about how to raise your vibration? What does that really mean? What does that do? And can anyone do it?
Everyone can do it because we're spiritual beings first. When we're talking about raising our vibration, we're physical, we're spiritual. So the physical part of us has a connection to this world. And much like there is a soul space that our physical body lives in, kind of like our own personal universe, the earth equally has its own energy field. So when we talk about being grounded, that is reminding ourselves that we're physical and we're going to actually connect to the space that we're in. When you meditate, what you're doing is shifting from the realization that you're physical to the reminder that you're spiritual. So meditation is simply allowing your soul to have access to an available universe. Meditation is something everybody can do. It's just that finite self every now and then is going to come in and go, no, I can't do this. I tried this last week and I suck at it.
Right.
Which takes all the fun out of it. And it's very childlike to explore. And part of the fun, and I'll just do a little shameless plug for my book right now. There are downloadable meditations in there, which I've gotten really nice responses about.
Great.
It's been very fun. So I think for people that have problems meditating, sometimes guided meditations help. And they should be diversified. You should have fun with it. It's exploring. It's your imagination. It's all this stuff. When you were 5 years old and someone said, let's play cowboys and Indians, you didn't say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Indians. I can't possibly do this now. You dive right in.
Right.
So when you get past the I can'ts and I shouldn'ts and last week it didn't works of your finite self,
Right.
you will find that meditation is one of the most delicious reminders that there is a universe that is just waiting to be a playground.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you for sharing. So for all the folks watching this and listening, driving in their cars or watching on their phones or on their computers, whatever it is, where can they find you? Where can they book an appointment? Where can they buy the book? And you've got classes and seminars, and please share.
Okay. I have a website, austynwells.com. That's AustynWells. My book, Soul Conversations, is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and IndieBound, which is a mechanism to help you find local bookstores. Please support your local bookstores, especially the metaphysical ones, to find books there. On my site, I have all of my classes, which are both online and in person. I love in-person classes because I think teaching intuition, it's really lovely to have that personal connection. But online is a very viable source as well. And I think there'll be more.
Well, we know where we can find Soul Conversations, but we have a few more items here on the table.
Yeah.
Share with us, what are these items and where can they find them?
So I am blessed to train mediums and intuitives, which is super fun. And from those classes, I created the Divine Spark cards. They are questions that I found were repeated and helpful for mediums to ask the soul in the spirit world to enhance the level of evidence that they were getting. So they are sold at the Arthur Findlay College in England, which is Disneyland for mediums, essentially.
Okay.
It's a psychic college, an incredible one. They also are helpful for grief counselors because they inspire spiritual and healing conversations and bring up memories about a loved one in the spirit world. I've also had families use them around holidays to remember their loved ones because everybody gets a card and you get to remember, come up with memories about the individual.
Oh, what a nice idea.
They're really fun.
Yeah.
They're really fun. So they've become many different things. Then the Hex deck is my Divine Insight deck.
Okay.
And that particular deck helps anybody build their intuition. So they are pictures as well as solid color cards. And the idea is you'll get a nice dance between the finite self trying to tell you what you think it means, but it's about defaulting to the infinite self and seeing what it feels like it means connected to the person that you're sitting with. So those are very, very fun. I also have holistic practitioners use them as tools with their clients when they hit that moment where they don't quite know what the next moment is or the client feels stuck. They're another conduit of communication.
That's terrific. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank
Can't wait
you.
for our next conversation.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Mentors and Moguls podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, rate and review this interview and share it with a friend who could benefit from today's guest. You can find bonus video episodes at mentorsandmogulspodcast.com or check out our events page and our blog at heatherrstone.com. Until next time, make it a great day.